villains and bad guys win in real life.
Over the last year, Colby has continued spewing shit like a busted sewer pipe. Much to the annoyance of most, he's continued his quest to elbow his way to the front of the queue by remaining in virtually everyone's bad graces. But before I get into that, I want to discuss the potential origin of Colby's gimmick. Michael Rothstein of ESPN did a brilliant article highlighting the whole thing. So, Colby signed with the UFC in 2014 as a 5-0 fighter and immediately started building an impressive resume. Over the next 3 years, he went 7-1, great streak that would seem to represent a fighter quickly climbing the UFC's ladder. But according to the article, his final win in that streak over Dong Young Kim was lacking in the excitement department, and as a package, Colby simply didn't represent the type of commodity the UFC were interested in. According to American Top Team's owner Dan Lambert, he was told by Sean Shelby that win or lose against Maia, the UFC would not be re-signing him. Now, if that is true, then love Colby or hate him, that is ruthless. Imagine going 7-1, finally securing a win over a ranked opponent, to realize that not only are you not climbing a ladder, pretty soon you're not even on the fucking ladder. That's a tough pill to swallow. But rather than go silently into the night, Colby made an adjustment. I was destroying everybody, and they told me that they weren't going to re-sign me. They had no use for me. That was the time where I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. That's when it started to click in my mind, and the wheels started turning. Like, Chael's getting all these people so worked up over some words, but he's saying fight words to promote a fight, and they are going to fight at the end of the day. Now, I can't corroborate that story, and it seems harsh that the UFC would have done that, but Colby isn't exactly apologetic about his gimmick. And as the article points out, in the space of 2 fights, Colby went from,
"Nah, he's wild. I respect him a lot. I love all the Asian fans, nothing but respect,"
to the disrespectful, loudmouth provocateur we've all come to know.
"Brazil, you're a dog. All you filthy animals suck."
So something happened to Colby in the interim. It's also worth mentioning that this story wasn't just cooked up last minute. Colby mentioned in passing last January that he was on the UFC's chopping block.
"Hey, Ariel, they were trying to cut me after the Damian Maia fight. That's how stupid the UFC is. They wanted to cut me after the Damian Maia fight. They said, no matter what happens in the fight, we're cutting you." Because they said that I wasn't a draw and I wasn't entertaining and they had no use for me. That was their quote unquote.
If that version of events is accurate, if that actually happened, would it change the way you view Colby? Would you be somewhat sympathetic to the gimmick? To be honest, for me, I think it would. I think I would be more sympathetic. In fact, in a weird way, I'd have to admire the hustle and the ability to adapt outside the cage. Colby was essentially given his walking papers, and rather than go silently, he said, no, I'm gonna fight this. I'm not toiling away in the fucking B-leagues. I'm gonna work out a way to change their minds. If that is the way it all happened, then I'd almost have to admire the grit and just the ballsiness, because although Colby's definitely improved on the mic, he was not exactly a natural right out the gate. Anyway, his comments on Brazil got an immediate backlash. The crowd went crazy. Apparently, people were trying to get to him in his hotel. Death threats. Several fighters were outraged. Some of his own teammates refused to train with his ass.
Yeah, the guys at the gym, they really took it personal. I kind of got cut off from the Brazilians and American Top Team in the gym, and they don't train with me anymore. So. But it is what it is.
But ultimately, not only did the UFC re-sign him, his next fight was for an interim title shot. So if you look at the whole sequence of events from Colby's perspective, it sent one message in an absolutely crystal clear fashion. Good boy, Colby. This is what we want. This is the type of headline-grabbing, attention-seeking behavior we are rewarding. More of this, please. So, is it any surprise that the last couple of years has been a mission to repeatedly top his prior comments, find new ways to offend the crowds, and keep himself in the headlines? No. The guy is the Pavlov's dog of trash talk. He's been conditioned to run his mouth, rewarded in the most unambiguous manner for doing so. So, depending on whether you believe this version of events or not, Colby's gimmick may be the result of a guy with his back against the wall, seeing the door closing on his dreams and saying, no, cut me, fuck you. And I can only speak for myself, but that does frame the whole thing in a different light. This might be the case of a guy who wanted to be champion, was prepared to do whatever it takes to make that happen, and subsequently got lost in his own gimmick.
What's up, nerds and virgins?
That gimmick has continued to evolve over the past year. I've previously described Colby as a pretty basic button pusher, but now he's smashing them buttons. After his win over Lawler, he said the now famous line about Matt Hughes.
It's a strong lesson that Robbie should have learned from his good buddy Matt Hughes. You stay off the tracks when the train's coming through, Junior. Don't matter if it's a Trump train or the Colby train. Get out the way!
Ruthless jab from Colby. I mean, forget the fact that he was throwing this line at the most chill fighter in the sport after whooping his ass all over the fucking place for 5 rounds. Hughes' whole life was derailed when a train hit his truck. He was left in a coma. When he woke up, he had serious neurological issues and has been left with lingering speech problems. So it was a real low blow.
If I wasn't hit by a train and that where was ever, I'd choke him out. He made me cry a couple times.
But you know what? At least Matt Hughes isn't dead. I'd have to think if he was, Colby wouldn't be using his corpse for trash talk.
Unfortunately, Glenn Robinson started our gym. Unfortunately, he passed away. Rest in peace to Glenn.
He was ducking me so long when Glenn Robinson was his manager that Glenn Robinson died from it because he was ducking me so hard and wouldn't fight me.
Jesus Christ, man. He's unbelievable. There's nowhere this guy won't go. He's basically dancing on people's graves here. Colby's also gone in on Usman's dad, calling him a scam artist. Now, Kamaru's father owned an ambulance company that got involved in some shady shit. Kamaru claims that the people behind the scam were employees of his father, and that his dad was out of the loop. Eventually, the company was investigated, shit hit the wall, and the conspirators pinned the whole thing on his father. He was offered a 5-year plea deal, but feeling he did nothing wrong, he rejected the offer. Well, the judge disagreed with that. They threw the book at his ass. 15 fucking years for defrauding the government. So Usman has been living without his father for 10 years.
And so my dad had to deal with that. And they just threw the book at him. They're like, we'll give you 15 years.
Well, Colby's not going to miss an opportunity. He's referred to Usman as a scam artist for holding the belt and faking injuries. When I made my last video, Colby's shtick was mostly in the realm of silly little insults, juvenile bullshit, Miss Piggy this, Tyke Will that. But now the guy is going for blood. He's stepping on toes and crossing lines with reckless abandon. Doesn't give a fuck.
If people are worried about words, but we go into an octagon to kill each other, don't be so sensitive, snowflakes.
But despite all this, his recent show on ESPN got the fewest viewers of any of the 5 UFC on ESPN shows. These underwhelming figures were somewhat offset by the fact that it was a daytime broadcast, and the card in general left a lot to be desired. But even still, it doesn't suggest that Colby's efforts are paying dividends in terms of popularity. Ben Askren rolled into the UFC, machine gun scattered the division with insults, and in a very short period of time became one of the most popular fighters in the sport. Colby's been using the same strategy for years, albeit in a much more crude and juvenile fashion. But he's just not gaining any traction in the sport. Which begs the question, why not? I think there's been some bad luck involved. Colby did seem to have a bit of a buzz this time last year coming out of the RDA fight. He had a belt, multiple beefs. He was becoming a prominent fixture in the news cycle. Hey, look what Colby done today. But after the RDA fight, he needed a sinus operation. And rather than wait for Colby, the UFC went ahead and stripped his ass, gave Till the shot. For me, this looked like a catastrophic misstep on the UFC's behalf. Because had Till won that fight, then Woodley versus Colby was off the table. And Tyron was the perfect opponent for Colby to finally test the limits of his gimmick with a guy who would trade insults. Woodley was fucking furious with Colby.
Colby Covington is coming to get his ass whooped. I ain't never in my life, I ain't never in my career, I ain't never in my existence as an adult human being wanted to fuck somebody up so bad, beat somebody so bad, embarrass somebody so bad, in his career so bad, take his life so bad. And I don't even say that figuratively, literally. I'm going to try to hurt him so fucking bad, they're never going to want to let me fight in the UFC again. That's a fact.
Woodley also had that funny angle about Colby's sister trying to slide into his DMs, which is kind of a checkmate from a trash-talking perspective. Hey, Tyquil, get ready to lose your belt. Yeah, that's cute, Colby, but, I literally could have fucked your sister, so, you know, be quiet. So you have this solid beef, a good storyline with both guys training at ATT, some vicious back and forth, and you have this ideological clash on the table. We all know about Colby's politics, but Woodley is also known for talking politics and was almost as reviled for doing so.
You know, I think about Martin Luther King, I think about, Muhammad Ali. At that time, they didn't know they were going to be public figures. They didn't know they would be people that you remember down the road. I've beaten so many guys who have great brands and great reputations. I don't get the respect that I deserve, and that leads me to believe that maybe it is a color issue.
So in my view, this represented a perfect opportunity to test the Chaos persona on the sturdy footing of a worthy foil. But the UFC went ahead and gave Till the shot, which created some tension between the UFC and Colby, who was fully aware of the missed opportunity to promote a big fight.
It is what it is. All I can say is, Woodley, you better not f this up. I'm your money fight. I'm the money fight. Don't f it up, Woodley. You better win this fight.
I think most people agreed that Colby was now in the Tony Ferguson school of fighters who just got fucked. But it was a moot point, because Woodley basically strolled through Till, and that would seem to clear the way for the now overdue grudge match.
He bitched out, if you want to be honest and frank. He talked all that crap, and then he got in the hot seat. The second he won that belt, I said, let's come get this smoke. He got quiet. Instagram accounts got taken down for a brief moment. I think it's an embarrassment to the sport, and if that's the next person that's got to get to work, you won't have to do much to get me up for that fight. So,
but then Usman comes through the RDA fight, and bizarrely, Dana immediately signals a desire for Woodley versus Usman.
You tell me. I'd like to see him fight Woodley now, after seeing that. Listen, Colby Covington pulled out of the fight, didn't defend his belt, this, that, the whole thing. I'm one of these guys, when I just see a fight like this, I want to see Usman fight now. We'll see what happens, though.
We thought Woodley Covington was guaranteed.
Yeah, nothing's guaranteed in life, man.
Mind-boggling shit, considering Colby's put in all the work to hype in a fight with Woodley. I think it's a sign that the UFC's priorities have changed. They're now more concerned with fighters who will jump when they say jump than they are with trying to create stars. Usman getting the shot was baffling, but while Colby was out, Kamaru had been busy destroying Dos Anjos.
You could ask anybody on this stage that's been in here for a long time when we call, if you take the fight, you take the fight, and if you don't, other people will. When we call and we make an offer, you take it. He'll get another shot, just not going to be when he wanted and when he thought it was coming.
Regardless, Colby lost his shot again, and this preceded a period where Colby went head-to-head with the UFC. I don't think I can ever remember a fighter going this ballistic on Dana specifically, especially a fighter under contract. It was crazy.
Uncle Fester, he's just mad that he saw one of his side chicks sweating me on Instagram. So, this is his way of trying to get back at me. It's not my fault that I'm raw American Steel and twisted sex appeal. It's not my fault that Uncle Fester's fat and he's off the HGH right now. He's got those little saggy titties going. So, we all know that they don't have balls. They won't release me. They're too scared. They got little baby nuts. Dana can't even confront people to his face. He's talking shit to all these people in the media. Talking shit to Oscar De La Hoya, a guy who would dust him off the mat with his shoes poked up in his little hooker's dress and everything. It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't take him one round for De La Hoya to dust Uncle Fester. But I'm standing my ground, man. I'm standing up for all the fighters that don't have a fucking platform, that can't stand up against the UFC and have to take everything the UFC gives them, all the shit the UFC gives them, fucks all the fighters on the pay, and just expects you to do things on the drop of a dime when they want it. All these fighters are yes men. I'm not a yes man, Jason.
You gotta side with Colby here. And as I said, if their threats to cut him is what created the post-Maya loudmouth, the UFC really can't complain when the rabid dog they created eventually turned around and bit him on a fucking ass. In March, Kamaru smashed the fuck out of Woodley, obliterating any chance of Colby tiring once and for all. Colby was promised the next shot in the immediate aftermath. But Kamaru had picked up an injury in the process, had to have surgery on a hernia, And this would again leave Colby twiddling his thumbs on the sidelines as the division around him appeared to be moving quickly. Guys like Ben Askren, Leon Edwards, and Jorge Masvidal were on the rise, all looking for a shot at the title. And in the cases of Masvidal and Askren, they were starting to overshadow Colby. In June, Colby, who had been steadfast about waiting for a shot, was basically told he had to take a fight with Lawler. Apparently, Colby was not in a position to negotiate here. The UFC needed the spot filled to save the card, so turned this down and he would have very likely continued to slide out of the UFC's good graces and possibly miss the next shot.
I knew that they were anxious to fill a void on an August 3rd show. It's a big ESPN show. I knew that some of the main events they were targeting did not come through, so I had a feeling that he might be getting a phone call, and that call came last night. And sometimes they make an offer you can't refuse, or maybe a demand you can't refuse.
As an opponent, Lawler was less than ideal in terms of hyping a fight. I mean, how do you talk shit about this guy? He's the most chilled out motherfucker in his sport. Colby did try his best though. He explained the reason Lawler had left ATT was because he was disgusted by the hanging of a poster of Woodley snatching his belt.
I didn't mean to spoil the news of why he left American Top Team, but he took his ball from the yard and left because of a picture. A picture they put up of Tyron Woodley getting his hand raised of when he beat Robbie Lawler. That's why he left the team, Ariel. Breaking news.
He portrayed Lawler as a traitorous, spoon-fed prima donna who had been given every advantage at ATT, only to turn his back on him as soon as things went sideways.
He got up in his feelings, started crying, and turned his back on all the people that helped him from the start.
And he also heavily implied that Lawler's later career success was down to steroids.
I mean, I trained with the guy in his prime, in his early 30s, and then just all of a sudden, he's just on some super potion and he just looks better than ever. You know, let's be honest, guys. It doesn't make sense.
But how did Lawler respond to all this? Didn't give a shit. Not a single solitary fuck.
Nah, I don't really pay much attention to what everyone's saying. Have a hard enough time just focusing on myself, getting myself ready. It's a tough task to go in every day, work hard, grind away, be a father, be a husband. Those are the things I try to focus on, how I can grow and get better. So it doesn't really matter what anyone else is saying.
And so with no real animosity, Colby looked like he was simply spinning his well-oiled wheels, trying any fucking thing to drum up some hype. The result was a fight that really didn't generate much buzz. As I said, the card was the lowest viewed of all 5 UFC on ESPN shows, which even considering a daytime broadcast, it's a bad sign that Colby's just not gaining traction. But he did put on a show, utterly mopped the floor with Robbie over 5 rounds. Outstanding performance. Last month, Masvidal set the record for the quickest KO. This month, Colby sets the record for the most strikes thrown in his single fight. The guy's work rate cannot be fucked with. He looked unstoppable and drew obvious comparisons to Usman's dominant win over Woodley. And with that performance, he seems as close to guaranteed the next title shot as you're ever likely to get in the UFC. So Colby's had a rough year. He was stripped, missed out on not 1 but 2 title shots, did his best to keep himself relevant, landed in a short notice fight with a total non-entity in the arena of hype. But he came through the whole thing and secured himself a title shot. Usman is a great rival for Colby, a fighter with an aura of invincibility. It's a super compelling matchup. I mean, it hardly promises to be a barn burner, but I cannot wait to see how it plays out. And he'll finally have the opportunity to engage in a vicious war of words. This is Colby's opportunity. We all know what Colby represents, and he's been given the president's seal of approval.
I have Colby here.
I saw you guys front row.
Here he is.
Mr. President, President Trump is making our country great again, and I'm making the UFC welterweight division great again. So let's unify these belts in November at Madison Square Garden, so it's right down the street for the Trump family. I guarantee our president will come and watch this front row. I feel amazing, but I would never want to fight you, Mr. President. I seen your bricks of hands in the Oval Office, man. If you hit me one time, I'm going to sleep. I ain't messing with you.
Usman is representing the exact opposite. He's a Nigerian immigrant, and he appears to have taken Colby's entire shtick personally.
That's part of what this next fight symbolizes to me, is the attitude that a lot of people have towards immigrants. People have this attitude to where it's like, we're Americans. Go back to your country. So-called Americans, the whole Colby Covington whole persona are like, I'm above that. That's the persona.
So the nature of the dynamic is one that could resonate. They've also had multiple run-ins over the last couple years that do seem to indicate there is a legitimate mutual hatred. But to be honest, I just don't see it. They had their little WWE style back and forth following Colby's win, and I really haven't seen anyone clamoring for more. There was some funny moments.
He's following in my footsteps. If I make a sandwich tomorrow, he's going to try and make the sandwich the same way.
But most people thought it was just kind of inane. Usman doesn't have much buzz. He's a new champion, never headlined a pay-per-view. He's been flying under the radar for years. There's not a lot of interest in the guy. He is certainly not Colby's Anderson Silva. So I just cannot imagine this fight selling well. And so it really looks like Colby's going nowhere fast in terms of star power. There's been false starts, missed opportunities, and some bad luck. But I think if he can get through Usman, his best bet is against his old friend Jorge Masvidal. One of the most common questions you see flying around the place is, how is Jorge friends with Colby? They are virtually polar opposites in terms of what they represent, but they've been working out and training together for almost a decade. Colby mentioned recently that many years ago, they were dreaming about both being at the top of the mountain, which is where they are now. So these guys are like brothers.
I couldn't be happier for him. Now we're at the top of the mountain. We had dreams and visions of making it to the top of the mountain together, and now here we are, the top of the mountain. So very thankful for, having him by my side, but, now it's business time.
But there's no love lost between them. They've been open to the idea of fighting each other.
There's no friends in this business. I got in this to be the best in the world, and I know I'm the best in the world right now. So whoever it is, I'm going to knock them all off, Ariel, one by one, beating each other up and fighting each other for free the last 8 years in American Top Team. So to go out there and get a 7-figure paycheck for both of us and set ourselves up for the rest of our lives.
Jorge has also been happy to criticize Colby's shtick and doesn't at all sugarcoat what he thinks of the guy.
Yeah, Colby made fun of Matt Humes getting hit by a train. Not cool.
Matt Hughes.
Matt Hughes, yeah. Matt Hume, yeah.
I didn't see that. That's not even remotely funnier. That's the stupidest shit I've ever heard. If that's real, it's like a parody to Matt Hughes.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
super distasteful.
I know.
Whatever, that's kind of stupid of him.
While Colby has been straightforward about the idea that he's happy for Jorge, but he's not getting in his way.
Look at his resume, look at mine. He's on a 2-fight win streak. He's 2-2 in his last 4 fights. So you're going to give a 50-50 fighter a title shot, then that doesn't really make a lot of sense, But on another note, we are one of the greatest duos in MMA history. We're the Batman and Robin of MMA right now. Of course, I'm Batman and he's Robin, but...
And he even alluded to a video of them training together in an apartment in which Colby manhandled Jorge in wrestling. So there's a serious sense of it's just business with these guys. I'm really happy for my friend, but I'm the fucking man here. Make no mistake about it. And I could easily see the build-up being similar in ways to Jorge versus Askren. These guys, they've both said that they've been beating the shit out of each other for years and will be happy to get paid to do so. So in my view, Colby would very likely try to maximize that payday for both and create a buzz for himself against an opponent with a ton of hype by talking massive amounts of shit in the build-up. I mean, I may be wrong, but I could easily see that. And to be honest, I just don't think Colby can turn it off. He's having too much fucking fun with it. As we know, Jorge would be rolling his eyes, and we'd finally get to see exactly what he thinks of Colby's gimmick, which I'd have to imagine is less than flattering. It would represent the perfect opportunity for both guys. Colby would finally have an opponent with a ton of hype who fucking reviles trash talk, while Jorge could step into his most celebrated role to date, that of the emphatic mouth closer, a guy whose recent career has been a violent campaign against everything Colby represents. Considering the intriguing nature of the friendship, juxtaposed the stark difference in philosophies, I think that fight could sell. Jorge Masvidal might just be Colby's dream opponent.
Fuck with me!